are officially live, I think. Yes.
Yes.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, as always, to another episode of The Sober Grind.
Sober Grind.
My name, as always, is Austin, and I am joined by...
Pej.
It is a pleasure, as always, to be here with
pleasure.
you all. Today, we have a very deep and timely topic to discuss with you. It is the opioid epidemic. We're going to be discussing what exactly that is, how it came about, where it came from, how opiates and opioids are obtained, and a whole lot of other information. So if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, experience, or if you just want to say hello, leave a comment in the section below, and we will do our very best to address those comments to the best of our ability. So let's jump right in. Pej, do you want to kind of give, where do you want to begin? The opioid epidemic.
I mean, there's a reason that I wanted to talk about this week is, it's not a secret that in our country right now there's a major epidemic going on with opioids. And I kind of just, from my own experience, just in the last week alone, I've seen some things happen, go down, and it saddens me. And I have a deep passion in trying to work towards not only raising awareness but battling this whole the whole opioid epidemic and what's going on. Obviously it's always going to be there. There will never be a shortage of people using opioids, and opioids comes in so many different forms and fashions. Obviously, it's been around, for thousands of years,
right? Ever
since the poppy plant was first discovered, and we've had heroin addicts for many years. Obviously people have been doing heroin, as far as I know, from the early 1900s, right? Mm-hmm. But it's expanded, and it's not only because the population is more, but it started because I remember in the 90s there was a lot of medical types of people were, for pain purposes, were prescribing a lot of OxyContin and Percocets and different types of painkillers that a lot of people were prescribed, but a lot of people were abusing.
Sure.
And there was a lot of doctors during that time, and especially in the late 90s, I remember that there was this one brand called OxyContin, which was an 80 milligram oxy, that a lot of people were using and abusing, and it was solely being used, supposed to be used for painkiller, but a lot of heroin addicts were getting their hands on these pills, and they were actually able to extract the opioids from it and shoot it. So the companies changed those, and after a while another form came out. They called them Roxys, and it was just it wasn't you weren't supposed to be able to actually shoot those, but addicts are creative.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
They'll figure it out, and they're able to. But regardless of the fact, I've seen different types of people become addicted to opioids, and obviously there are people who they will get on pills and they will develop a dependency upon pills for pain, and it could be from back pain, it can be from an accident, from an injury, but what happens is these things captivate you. These types of pills, they're out there. A lot of people will get them. Sometimes they'll really be experiencing more pain than usual. So they know that when they take these pills, it helps them feel a lot better. It alleviates the pain, and so some people start to abuse the pills. And that is why they are controlled, and that is why the doctor will prescribe them, and they're supposed to be taken as prescribed. Now, a lot of times, some people take them for a short amount of time for pain, and then they store them in their medicine cabinets. And when they're stored in their medicine cabinets, grandma may have put her OxyContin in there, and she's got a full bottle, and some curious child comes along and will somehow, they'll know. A lot of kids are knowledgeable these days. They know.
Well, not only that, I've heard countless stories of people going to open houses and raiding the cabinets in the bathroom for these exact drugs.
Absolutely. I mean, it's to the point where I've even heard, there's been reports of addicts, full-on addicts going and robbing pharmacies because
Wow.
because they know that that's pretty
Believe
much,
it.
it's like
Yeah.
there's a plethora of different types of pain meds
Yeah.
available there. So, and that's how far they'll go because that's how bad they want them.
So let me ask you this. How has it become an epidemic? It's been labeled a national epidemic in recent history. Opioids have been around for thousands of years.
Right.
What changed recently? How has it become, and why has it become a national crisis?
Well, when 1 in 8 people are dying they say that about 114 to 115 people are dying of an opioid overdose or overdosing per day in our country. So that's a lot of people. I mean, in our community, in our recovery community, we know a lot of people that are attempting to get recovery, and often we will hear of people overdosing and dying, more often than usual.
Yeah.
Right? It's happening all the time. If you ask anybody that's in recovery or the recovery community, they know a handful, if not a large amount of people. There's countless people truly that are overdosing and dying. So it's no joke. That's why I have such a deep passion in trying to help people, not just raise awareness and trying to prevent people from falling into the traps and be, there's captivated. That stuff is captivating, right? And often, I've seen this a lot of times that somebody will have some kind of back pain or back surgery, for example, and the guy was never really a drug addict. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But and this happens more often than not. He will be prescribed pain medication. He will use the pain medication as prescribed at first, but over a period of time, he'll start cheating and taking a little bit more and a little bit more to the point where he needs a little bit more, and then he tries to go back to his doctor and get his prescription refilled, and if he took it in too fast of a time, he won't get it refilled, so then they find the phony doctor, or they find some street doctor, and that person will then get more, and before you know it, they totally need it, they constantly use it, and then when they can't get their hands on the pills anymore, they resort to using heroin.
Yeah. Now, sorry to backtrack a little bit, but so I've heard cases of doctors over prescribing opioids as pain medication. Is there any truth to that?
Absolutely. There's a lot of criminal doctors out there that, and like I said in the 90s, I'm going to say this.
Is it a money thing?
They say that they're not supposed to get kickbacks from Big Pharma or the pharmacy companies, but I believe that when they're selling, and I'm not saying doctors are bad people, I just know that in the 90s from my own I'll be transparent, from my own personal experience, I was more of an upper guy.
Okay.
So I liked doing stimulants, right? I tried heroin, I did heroin for a while, I did some opium and things like that, but in order for me to nurture my addiction back in the day, we figured out where the doctors were the ones that would prescribe you that stuff, and you'd go to their office, and you didn't have to say much. You just tell them, I've got glaucoma, I've got back pain, I've got things like this, that, the other, and sometimes they wouldn't even do a full diagnosis. They would just prescribe you the pills.
Wow.
So then I would get those pills and come back and sell them to my heroin-using friends because they would give me money, and then I could go and get high on my own, for my drug of choice. But so there was a lot of doctors. I know that there was a lot of crackdowns in the last probably early 2000s, and I'm not saying that doctors don't still prescribe them where they shouldn't be prescribing them. I think that doctors overprescribe pain medication, and they don't really look for alternatives to people overcoming their newfound addiction to opioids.
Gotcha. Let's take this time to answer a couple questions. I saw a couple comments in right now. I want to take this time to open it up to everyone, no matter where you're watching this. Leave a comment, leave a question, say hello, let us know where you're watching from so we can address this. And it would be a huge help to us if you could share this post right now or tag a friend, someone that you feel this could help, because we're just trying to spread a message of hope and reach as many people as possible. Nima says, great topic. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Nima.
Vanessa says, that's for sure. I hope this is helpful for you all. Darren said, CBD. A couple times. Do you want to touch. I'm not
I
sure
mean,
the
CBD's
context there.
non-psychoactive. You know, it's comes from.
Oh, CBD is a great natural way
Right.
off of heavy narcotics. There, I
Mhm.
see. Okay. Fareed
Hi,
says
Fareed.
hi.
Freed's a good friend.
Luke says, "What's up? What's up, Luke?
Hi, Luke.
Thank you for chiming in." Mark says, "Good morning from Newport. Newport in the house. What's up? We are live in Irvine right now. Where's everyone else watching from?" Natalia says, "Hi, Pej. Thank you guys so much for this. I love all the info you provide." Thank you for tuning in, Natalia. It is awesome to have you here. Fentanyl. Yeah.
Yeah, and fentanyl.
So-
You know, I'm happy that you bring up fentanyl because that's like, you know, the highest form, one of the highest forms of opioids, and it's a killer. I mean, obviously, we know what's happened in more recent times with Prince, and you know, that was a famous artist that passed away as a result of an accidental overdose
Yeah.
with fentanyl, and there's a lot of debate about that.
Mm.
A lot of the fans, I don't really talk about it too much
Sure.
amongst the fans because it's
Yeah.
such a sensitive subject. A lot of people ask me, they know like my background is in working with addiction, and they're like, "What's your take on this?" And I have a lot of opinions about it. You know, I mean, I don't think that it didn't happen. I do know that it's unfortunate, but there's a lot of opioids that are readily available due to the way social media works these days. You can find this stuff through the black market, and it can
Yeah.
be delivered to you. You know,
Yeah, I believe
fentanyl
it
being
is.
one of them, and people are buying it and using it. You know, and some people are shooting it, and then there's a lot of people that are dying from it. And there's a friend of mine. She was on the show not that long ago, Rhonda Rozelle. Her son died from a fentanyl overdose, and it's just happening more and more. It's very sad.
Yeah.
Very sad what's going on. And sadder than that is the fact that I have a lot of friends on a national level that reach out to me that have gotten caught up in this world of addiction that in relation to opioids, and you know, they come out here and they try to get help, and sometimes they don't want to get that help, and they end up resorting to the streets. And I was on the streets the other night, and if you saw what I saw, it is ugly.
Yeah.
I'm so saddened at what's happened to my city. I love Costa Mesa. I grew up in Costa Mesa. I have watched some parts of that city just deteriorate, and the people that are on the street, it looks like Skid Row all over again, and it's that bad. And I'm saddened by the fact that kids these days can get addicted to pills. The reality of this thing is that if we're not really careful, a lot of these kids these days are catching wind of opioids, and the fact that they come in a pill form, and the fact that it's an easy way to get high, right? To basically get sauced, and then you take it and you get loaded, and you can't get enough of it. So what do? You go after heroin. And now kids, you know, back in the day we used to go to the hood to pick up some weed on the streets or some cocaine. Now these days it's like heroin is totally available. Black tar heroin.
It's
you know,
everywhere.
That's out here in California.
Yeah, where I'm from in New Jersey as
Jersey's,
well.
yeah, China White.
I grew up in a very affluent, pretty wealthy area, a nice beach town.
Yeah.
And it's terrible how many people I know, how many friends have overdosed on both pill form and heroin. It's just horrible.
Kimberly Hewitt asks, what about doctors who prescribe Suboxone maintenance for Rhodes clients who keep relapsing till they're 40? I personally, thank you for that question, Kimberly. I mean, we talked about this a few weeks ago on here. When it comes to Suboxone, I think there should be only one intention for it, and it's not to maintain somebody so that they continue to be on Suboxone and be able to withstand the pain that they're going to have to endure eventually and through withdrawals. I think that Suboxone maintenance should solely be used for only 3 to 7 days. You know, as for you shouldn't keep somebody on Suboxone. There's a lot of doctors that like to keep people on Suboxone for long periods of time, and this is my own personal opinion and some of the people that I surround myself with. I don't think people can get true recovery if they're maintaining on Suboxone. Suboxone's not sober in my eyes. Suboxone blocks the brain receptors, you know, to the point where people cannot actually work on themselves and their sobriety and have that spiritual awakening. You know, they're still kind of high. Like
Yeah.
Suboxone's basically the modern day methadone,
Okay.
and it's not supposed to get you high, but
Mhm.
there's people that even have figured out how to do that.
Gotcha.
And methadone was more what they used to use in the 70s and 80s,
Mm.
and that within itself is highly addictive. And
Yeah. Yeah, I know
I
that,
personally
yeah.
was in treatment with 5 guys that were all addicted to methadone in
Mhm.
high milligrams and dosages. I mean, like unusually high, dramatically high. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah. That's also a good segue. This is, I believe, episode 19 or 20 of this podcast and live stream. We've covered a lot of different valuable topics, a lot of drugs, the history of drugs, everything that you can think of. We've probably touched it, or if not, we will in the future.
Mhm.
So make sure you click the links in the description of this video. We would love for you to subscribe. We have it linked to iTunes and Google, and we're hopefully soon going to be on Spotify and a couple other platforms as well. But we would love to help for you to help us grow by clicking those links, subscribing, sharing it with a friend, and leaving a review if you can. Keep leaving comments in these sections so we can keep addressing them. And let's just continue on here. So
I see
Hesh,
that Kimberly says I was debating that
Okay.
with the sponsee, and she says, thank you, I totally agree. I'm happy we're on the same page. I know that like-minded people that are in recovery, truly doing recovery, understand, there's a need for Suboxone, obviously.
Mhm.
I believe that it's better and more effective than methadone because you're not supposed to get addicted to it. I think what I've seen, my experience with working in treatment is there's usually 2 different types, or a few different types of people that come in that are addicted to opiates. But when it comes to doing the Suboxone taper, there are some types that'll be like, I want to be on this as long as I can be. And then there's some types that are like, I want to get off of this as fast as I can. Right? And the sad thing is, what really gets me is that you're taking something that's going to help you alleviate the pain, and you're avoiding really going through the excruciating amount of pain that's endured through a major withdrawal with Suboxone. But once the taper is done, the point is to get long-term recovery. And unfortunately, this is very sad, unfortunately, the majority of people that come through and go through that process end up not taking the recovery seriously and end up high on heroin again. And the problem is, the reason that there's a lot of overdoses is, besides the fact that sometimes there's fentanyl in it, or their bodies can't handle a high amount of dosages, they haven't done it in a while.
Yeah.
So it's like you have no tolerance. At that point, you're clean for a while, all of a sudden you go out and they do a big shot, and before you know it, their body just can't handle it, and they shut down and they die. And it's very, very, very sad.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so tell me, why is it the withdrawal? Why is it so hard to kick for so many people? If you really want to quit opioids in particular here, why are they so hard to get off of?
Well, because opioids, I think that there's only one other drug that's more powerful and plays with your mind more, and that would be nicotine.
Okay.
That's probably the hardest one to kick or quit, right? A lot of people struggle with nicotine. But when it comes to opioids, I mean, your body develops a dependency. So it's in your blood, but it's also in your bones. So it's when you, let's say, for example, a meth user or a cocaine user, all they really need, there's not a major detox that comes with that. But when it comes to opioids, it's a process. And your body needs to rejuvenate and get back to its regular self. So a lot of people, they were doing opioids in the first place. Some people do it solely for pain, the ones that take the pills. But people that are shooting heroin, most likely, there's some psychological stuff going on there, right? And the fact that they've used pretty much one of the kings of the drugs that are the hardest to kick, they sometimes don't want to, not only do they not want to work through their psychological stuff, whatever it may be, but it's like it mind warps you. It's captivating. Do you know what I mean? Once you are shooting needles or just doing heroin, it becomes a way of life to where not only do you want to do it, but you kind of feel like you need to do it. And then it's just so hard to get away from it. There's not a lot of people that there are people that do. Now that the epidemic is really high, there are more and more people that I'm seeing that are heroin addicts that get long-term recovery or work towards becoming sober because they get tired of living that way. You know, me personally, I was more into methamphetamines, and at a certain point in my life, I just got so tired, and I luckily I was surrounded by people who went through the same things I went through and taught me how much more important it is to have recovery over this life that I've been caught up in, because I don't think that any of us ever intended to become heroin addicts or drug addicts for that matter. I know when I was a kid, the idea was that this is bad for you and you want to be ambitious and you want to do something with your life. So
it just grabs you.
It grabs you. It's captivating. I mean, it's to the point where there were days in my addiction where I would just think, oh my God, I so want to quit this. And then all of a sudden I'd find myself with a spoon in my hand or a needle or you know, a smoking device or whatever, just thinking, I'm still doing this. Like, how am I ever going to stop? Like, it's, you know, if you don't have any clue of how to do recovery or you're not open to doing recovery, you're going to get loaded again, because that's the next best thing you can do. And a lot of people think that that's going to solve the problem. It actually makes the problem worse. I mean, that's a no-brainer for us people that are in recovery, but for the person that's never really experienced recovery, or people that don't know anything about recovery and don't know anything about addiction, they can't understand, like, why is Jimmy doing heroin? That's like the worst drug ever. And there's a stigma attached to it too. A lot of people look down on they'll call them junkies, and they'll call them, full-on addicts, and how dare they ruin our family with their addiction. And people don't realize that there's a difference between the people who they were as opposed to who they've become when they're in their addiction. It's day and night. The addiction is gruesome. The addiction is the killer. The addiction is the one to look down on. But the person themselves, they're good people. They just got caught up and they got addicted. And so now, it's all about fighting through that and trying to get back to the best version of themselves. Yeah.
We had a couple good questions here I wanted to jump into. Can you talk about mixing other substances with opioids and what combinations can be lethal?
I mean, there's a lot that's a great question. Over the years, you'd see there was different types that you'd see. There's some people that were just straight up downer guys, downer people. They would just do heroin, right? And then you'd see some people that just did uppers, stimulants, speed, cocaine, things like that. Then you get the guys that were, like, I won't say it here, but because it's not appropriate.
Sure.
But they just have no care in the world. They will mix whatever they can. They will shoot. When you mix cocaine and you mix heroin together and you shoot the two of them together, it's called speedballing.
Okay.
Extremely dangerous because
upper and a downer.
Upper and a downer.
Yeah.
So you're basically slamming you're basically just hitting the pedal to the metal, going 1,000 miles an hour, and slamming the brake. To the point where
it's like Four Locos on another level.
It's a total risk. You could. Your heart could pound and burst out of your chest. Who knows what could happen? It's deathly. A lot comes with that too. You can get diseases, and you can, it's all bad. But people do it because I think that they're at the point where it doesn't matter what they put inside themselves, and it's highly lethal. It's very dangerous. Then there's something that I saw more often with a lot of clients that I still see quite often is a lot of these kids are coming in and they not only do they say that they mixed meth with heroin, which they call a goofball, but it's called goofballing, right?
Okay.
But like they're not really sad about doing it. They're like they're sort of like they kind of like glorify it in a sense. Like I used to love doing goofballs. It's like there's nothing elegant about that. There's nothing cute about that. Like, dude, something deep within you is really wrong, and if you don't work through that stuff, you're gonna be a goofball, So
yeah,
sad and scary.
Miguel asks, why do they treat the opioid epidemic differently than the crack epidemic? Any thoughts on that?
I don't know that they really treat it differently. I mean, from what I understand, Donald Trump wanted to block off the amount that's coming into this country as opposed to invest and put funds into the actual treatment for the addiction.
Yeah. And really strict, like death penalty for dealers, right?
For the dealers, I believe there is a death penalty. But what's even more interesting is that over the years now, if you are an addict and you get caught with drugs, it's less of a sentence, if anything. You can even, it used to be, it was a full-on felony. These days, like, you get a slap on the wrist and you get to leave. But the point is that there's still, no matter what, the person still has the problem, the addiction. So really, we need to help people.
Yeah.
We need to help people.
What's the solution, Pesh?
The solution is, I think, besides the fact that we raise awareness, I mean, people need to tune in, and people need to know that this is happening, and it's going to keep happening, and it's going to keep getting worse. And for one, hide your pills. Don't keep them. If you use them for yourself or your family member, use them. Get rid of those things, man. You don't need to be storing that stuff, because it could be a disaster in the making.
Yeah.
Also, you know, when these kids these days, don't ever hesitate to drug test your kid. You know, you can learn a lot about your kid and what kind of a person he truly is. It's just from a 12-panel drug test. Take him home.
Absolutely. My mom used to drug test me all the time.
Give him a random drug test, you know, so you can see if he's got THC in his system. If he's got opioids in his system, you may have a major problem on hand. And one of the ways to notice that is that if he or she is dozing off, if they've got cigarette burns in their clothing, if they're failing in school, if they're crashing their car, if they're behaving differently, all these different things are great indicators that your kid may be doing some heavy drugs. And how could that have happened? It could have happened right from within your own home. They may have found your Vicodin, and now, without you knowing it, their Vicodin addiction, which was just something that you were using as a prescribed medication, has now become their addiction. And they may actually be going to Chewy up the street in the hood trying to get some actual heroin. It's the reality of what's going on. It's really, truly going on. And it's scary. So what can be done?
Yeah.
People, if they need help, you want to reach out for help, call me. You know, I'll put you in the right direction. Whether, you know, I try to bring put people in treatment all the time. Treatment centers, indigent centers, sober livings. You know, I connect therapists with people once they actually are done with treatment or during the time that they're in treatment. But
it's wonderful.
The help is out there, and it comes in different resources and sources. So if you need help, you can always call me. My number's 949-751-7761. You can leave us a message. By the way, we have another page. It's called Ask an Addiction Specialist. It's actually right there.
It is in the link. The link is in the description of this video.
If you ever have questions about addiction, if you're addicted or you have a family member that's addicted and you want to ask any questions, we have professionals that will usually respond to your questions in a timely manner that are addiction specialists. We also have people in the community that have experience with addiction, and they can always give their input. But we'd love to interact with you. You know, the Sober Grind. Also, if you guys listen to this on different platforms like Google Play or iTunes, we would really like for you to subscribe to the Sober Grind podcast and ask questions and tell your friends about it and just get it out there. Let's talk about this stuff more. You know, people turn a blind eye if they think that this problem isn't in their own household, but believe it or not, it could be happening in your very neighborhood, it could be happening to the person next door, or it could be happening in your own house.
Well put. Yeah, couldn't have said it any better myself. Hopefully this was a helpful episode for you guys today. We covered a lot. We answered a lot of questions. If you have a future question, let one of us know and we'll get to it next time. If there's a future topic suggestion that you would like us to cover as well, let us know, let Pej know, let myself know, and we will certainly cover it next time. Until next time, my friends, Sober Grind out.
Sober Grind.